Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Flossmoor. Today is Monday, March 9th. And just as a reminder, this meeting is being Zoomed for the convenience of those who are unable to make it in person. When I get to public comment, I would appreciate the folks who have signed in to make public comment to come to the podium, state your name and your address. Please act with decorum and direct all of your public comments to the public body at large and not an individual member of staff. And also, please limit your public comment time to 5 minutes per person for a total public comment time of 30 minutes. The time is 7:01. Clerk Porter, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Mitros. Here. Trustee Mustafa.
Here.
Trustee Rogers.
Here.
Trustee Daggett.
Here.
Trustee Dorsey.
Here.
Trustee Lofton.
Here.
And we have a quorum. And Mayor Nelson.
Present. Thank you so much. We have a quorum. We don't have any recognitions or appointments tonight, so I'm going to skip straight to public present wishing to address the board. And the first person I have signed up is Pastor Doyle. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. Again, for the record, DOYLE. This land is your land, RY, as United States Marine Corps veteran. It's been a while, and this is intentional. So, as a reminder for some and new to others, 25 years ago, I was a fresh widower due to breast cancer, having to pick up pieces, figure out how to pay for a lot in the midst of grief. And so I've never forgotten it, ever. So within the last month, I met a 27-year-old business owner who came to the knowledge of Chicago in the worst way. And he's joined me here tonight. He's very clear about his business intention. And when I looked at his business intention and matched it with Flossmoor, I thought, hey, perfect. And what I mean by that is he could be is a business owner on his own and was a business owner six, excuse me, as of July of 2025. Um, don't wish to belabor the point of why sometimes we need to increase our income. I just know and remember what that was like for me 25 years ago. So this is back to back, meaning there's another reason why I have to speak on the mic, but I'm conscious of time and really didn't need to take up 5 minutes tonight, but plan to be uh, before you again next Monday. But for tonight, the business owner who's following me um, didn't know that it would come this quick in terms of coming before the mic. And I did tell him before we came in that he would have 5 minutes as to the why. But please remember, sometimes our life changes in the blink of an eye, and we didn't ask the why. Thank you. See you next week for me.
Thank you, Pastor Doyle. Next, I have Mr. Trayvon Kennard. Did I say that right? I'm so sorry.
Trevion Kennard. Yes, how you doing,
Trayon
man?
Kennard. Nice to meet you.
Appreciate the introduction, Pastor Doyle. As Pastor Doyle had said, we have just met each other not too long ago, and is we still have a long way to go. So once again, I'm sorry. My name is Trevion Kennard. I own a licensed and insured landscaping company. And what other better day than today to have this meeting, the first 70-day degree of Chicago, right? We look forward to the summer. While on my way here, I got a call and somebody asked me, I spoke to somebody and they asked me, why, when you introduce yourself, do you add the that you are licensed and insured? And I said, I like to make it clear that I'm not just a young man going door to door asking, do you need your grass cut? I'm a well cut man who actually likes to see the precision in someone's line. I like to help as well. There's been times where Homeless men will see me and my staff cutting grass, and they will ask, "How can I help for a couple of dollars?" I would say, "Okay, how about this? Just pick up some trash, and I give you a couple of dollars." Um, I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. How did I start cutting grass? I owned a landscape company during COVID. While in college, everything slowed down. Wasn't able to go to college classes physically. I was able to do things via Zoom. That didn't work out too well. I would kind of lose my attention because it really wasn't snapping. So I decided to start pressure washing for a couple of dollars. Pressure washing, just like college, it wasn't working out too much, so I picked up a lawnmower. I then decided the best investment is in yourself, so I started to invest in myself as well. I started to scale and grow my business bit by bit by bit to where I go from a 22-inch daily homeowner's lawnmower to a 60-inch commercial lawnmowers for bigger businesses. Um, so that's why I decided to get my LLC and start to take things more serious. When you are in the landscaping business, a lot of people first thing they like to think of is grass. Not only do we cut grass, but we also do year-round services. And this year, we plan on scaling up to hardscaping as well. Things like land concrete, patio work, and stairs and things like that. Once again, when people think of landscaping, they think of just someone who's going door to door, right? If you don't mind me asking, if you don't mind me asking, I'm sorry. What's your name now? Sharon. Okay, Sharon. When I had first started landscaping, I wanted to start hiring people. I first had to train them as to how to cut grass properly. And I asked him, "How will you cut this grass?" He said, "I will simply start at the gate and go around in circles." I say, "No, that's not how we will go about things if I plan on moving further any further with you." I say, "We will start here and we will do things strategically, come back and forth. We won't strut the grass or anything like that." I also asked him, if you was doing things on your own, about how much would you charge? He said, "This don't seem too much like a $20 job. It shouldn't be any more than $20." So, Miss Sheriff, if you don't mind me asking, would you rather a man just do circles in your grass and kind of miss spots, or would you rather somebody licensed and insured cut your grass strategically and make you look like the talk of the block? Which would you rather? There we go. You would prefer somebody who knows what they're doing versus somebody who just come off the top of their head and say, "I will be that $20 guy to get the job done," when the job theoretically is not done properly. So once again, how can I add to Flossmoor? I can make this look so much better than just a suburb outside of the city of Chicago. Like I said, I plan on scaling up to doing hardscaping and things like that. A lot of times while on my way here, I done ran into so many potholes that I almost needed to raise my insurance up, tell them I got some problems on my wheels. But that's beside the fact. Hopefully that I I can hire even more people to help me so that I can expand. I do have multiple trucks, multiple plows for the street, dump trucks. I have different type of landscaping machines such as detachers, such as 60-inch lawnmowers and everything. So I come to this meeting. I look forward to meeting everybody. I look forward to shaking your hands. I look forward to doing any more business. Have a nice one.
Thank you, Mr. Kennard. Very nice to meet you. Welcome. All right, next, could I get an update on the Cook County property tax disbursements from Ann Navoa, our Director of Finance?
Hello, everybody. So as of today's date, we are at about 92% collected of our second installment. So we did see a few more smaller disbursements from Cook County. Now, let me remind you, that's only half of the property tax money we are supposed to collect in a fiscal year. So we're at about 3.3 million right now. Typically, we do see 97% of our levy, which is over $7 million. Now, myself, Bridget, and the mayor did sit through a call with Cook County on Friday. The treasurer's office did not show up. So it was just us and the Cook County president's office, which does not control the money disbursements. So we were told that we should see a few more smaller disbursements this next week. And then starting March 16th, they will be dispersing first installment bills with that April 1st due date. So it's hard to say that we're hopeful we'll see more revenue this fiscal year. It's very, very unclear.
Thank you so much. In addition to that, WGN is also running a feature tonight at 9 p.m. Where I sat down with Ben Bradley to talk about the pinch that we're receiving from Cook County and also from President Trump's um, halt of our Section 219 funds for the continued phases of the viaduct project. We are continuing to stay on all fronts. But it's been very disappointing dealing with some of the leadership that we have. So just thought I'd keep you all up to breast. Thank you. Next, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there anything anybody would like pulled off for discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Porter, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Daggett,
Yes.
trustee Dorsey,
Yes.
trustee Lofton,
Yes.
trustee Mitros,
Yes.
trustee Mustafa,
Yes.
trustee Rogers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. We don't have any formal reports for any of our commissions, but I would like to mention that Community Relations will be out in Flossmoor Park helping host, I think this is our 19th annual Village of Flossmoor St. Patrick's Day Parade. It's really not much of a parade, it's a bike ride. The kids decorate their bikes, but the fire trucks are there and the fire trucks are awesome. And there's usually donuts or cupcakes. Lineup is at 12:30 at the community, Flossmoor Community Church, the community house. So please bring your bikes or come out for a stroll. It's a nice walk around the park. Next up, can I get a motion to approve the liquor license request for a Class AB VGP liquor license for Beyond Borders Cafe?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much. I will ask Bridget Wachtel, our village manager, to lead us off.
Thank you. Beyond Borders Cafe has been open since July of 2025. And since that time, in addition to the wonderful coffee and pastries that they serve, they also have 2 liquor licenses, one for pouring wine and beer, and also for retail sales of wine and beer in their establishment. They're interested in expanding their menu and being able to include mixed drinks. And so therefore they are before the village board seeking a license that would permit them to do so. Looking at our classifications of license, the one that most closely fits is our Class AB, AB/VGP, which stands for Video Gaming Prohibited. This would allow them to continue to serve and sell beer, wine, and then be able to add the mixed drink component. The Zaraznis, who are the owners of Beyond Borders, are here this evening. They can certainly answer any questions that you may have. The board would simply need to make a motion to permit the new classification, and they would act on that immediately, as I understand. And then with their renewal in May, they would let their other 2 licenses fall off, and that this will be the only license that they have.
Thank you so much. Really, you have underpromised and over-delivered. Your space has been a great place for community events and gatherings and discussions of all kinds, jazz nights, open mic, acoustic guitars, late night dessert with family. Another resident today was talking about how he had a place where he could take his 12-year-old daughter after dinner at another establishment. They just came over and she was able to have a cookie and he was able to have tea. So thank you for all that you've poured into your business. Every detail hand done. I know you haven't had much sleep since you opened it in July, your early morning and late night folks, but really your love for the community through your work, through how you've opened your doors, really shows. So thank you so much for being here tonight to present this. I'm going to let Trustee Mitros start us off. Any questions or comments?
Not really. I'm in favor of this. I'm just kind of curious how did it all evolve? Because it is evolving. It's not like static, kind of what you thought initially. But is that like to your surprise, or I mean, your expectations are beyond what you initially thought, or Yeah, please do. Which, and this is all good. I think it's fantastic that it's going this way.
So yes, to answer your question initially, it somewhat surprised us because, like you said, we were just going to concentrate on beer and wine. However, the demand from the customers mainly, how come you guys don't serve martinis,
Martinis.
espresso martinis,
Right.
right? I said, well, we sort of didn't think in that direction yet,
Right.
you know, but it just kept on coming on, coming on, and coming on. So then we sat down, we talked about it. We did open up our other room now, so
Uh-huh.
we have additional space in the cafe, which almost fits our growth model. Which now we have a second portion of the place that is more intimate. We did invest money into an upright piano, so we have a piano in the back now. We're going to start hosting piano nights. That also kind of sort of fits in with other options for beverages. So with that said, the combination of the demand from the customers, the growth, the growth model now, because we do have other plans for that building as well,
Right.
that will be coming on, not yet with time. But to answer your question, that's exactly how it came
Well,
about.
it's got a cool vibe, and I know that's, the community appreciates that. And so you won't be able to carry out liquor, just solely beer and wine. And I'm in favor of what would your hours be?
Same,
Okay, no change.
no change.
Okay, well, that's really all I have. I think it's a great idea, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
Trustee Mitros, you may have heard Ms. Zarowski whisper to Mr. Zarowski Scotch. I was the one that
Oh.
asked for that. so.
Well, they better get scotch.
Really, I have no questions. I know you guys have worked hard and you have a beautiful place. People do love it, and I'm sure the response has been great. So I'm very much in favor of it. Please move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Dorsey.
You know, it's easier once you've had an experience with the business and to see it come full fold to make a decision on a growth strategy. And I think for the way we would want to have our businesses flourish in Flossmoor and actually fit into the landscape of Flossmoor, you guys have done that. Is there anyone in the group that's what do they call a bartender? A mixologist? Is that what the technical term? Are you hiring
Well,
one?
you know what, Greg is a jack of all trades, so we do pull a lot of knowledge from him, you know, because he does have
All right.
a lot to offer.
Well, I'm not looking for a job, but I did. I was a bartender in college for a while.
There you
so, but I just see the atmosphere and the vibe. I love what you guys have done in the back room. I'm looking forward to you can possibly do something of an outdoor area in that space too. I just think to use my fellow trustee, it's just a cool place, and you guys have done a really wonderful job with it. And I wish you all the success going forward.
Thank you. Make the drive-through.
No drive-through.
No drive-through. No drive.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett.
Yeah, you got to go to Kentucky for drive-through liquor.
Missouri.
Yeah, so typically on liquor license stuff, I'm fairly cautious. So numerous times I've asked for more time to consider. And I was going back and forth on this one with this one as well. And it's not, it's more so just because I want to get as much feedback as possible before we make a decision on liquor license stuff. In thinking it through and looking, you guys already have the pour license. This is just an addition to what you guys are already doing. So I'm I kind of go back and forth with it a little bit, but I think in this situation, I'm okay with moving forward with it without a little bit more time, because we've already got the liquor licenses in place that you guys are functioning under. Haven't had any issues. So in my world, I think that I'm fine with it moving forward. So
Thank you. Trustee Rogers.
After looking it over and visiting the space, and looking at the audience that comes in. It's a pretty mature audience. Um, we knew it was coming for this liquor request, so I don't see any issues with it as well. I'm in favor of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mustafa.
Oh, thanks for coming back. I enjoy every visit I've had, and I thank you for coming to Flossmoor. You've been very conscientious, responsible with your business, and it adds immeasurably to Flossmoor. I'm in favor of this change in your liquor license.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Clerk Porter, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Trustee Rogers.
Yes.
Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Trustee Dorsey.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Next up
Thank you.
is congratulations. Have a good evening. Next up is a discussion of our fiscal year 2027 preliminary budget. For those of you who haven't sat through a budget discussion before, the budget year starts on May 1st. So what we do is we spend both meetings in March and both meetings in April picking apart the budget and going through it with a fine-tooth comb. The budget is probably the most important document that we put together. It highlights the values of the village and what we're prioritizing your hard-earned funds to spend on. A lot of time and effort has gone into this. There are some unknowns, so this is just again preliminary, and you will see it evolve through the next this meeting and then the following 3 meetings before being approved. With that, welcome to Village Manager Wachtel, and take it away.
Thank you so much. It's a great introduction. This evening, we're going to focus on 2 of our major funds in our budget. Our general fund, which accounts for our general operations, all of our daily department operations, as well as our water and sewer fund, which is an enterprise fund where the water and sewer revenues support the water and sewer expenditures. We're going to talk about that in detail tonight with respect to our current fiscal year, which is fiscal year 26, what's been budgeted, where we're projecting to end the year come April 30th, and then talk about what has been put together for fiscal year 27. In light of the situation with Cook County and the property tax remittance, this has been a very challenging budget to put together and to present for this evening. This is a process that starts in December of every year with our staff and really carries through until the end of April. And we've been back at these numbers a couple of times already, and I expect that we'll be back at them again, really because of some of the unknown of what's going on with Cook County, and you're going to hear that a lot here this evening. For the last few years, we've started our discussion by focusing on the water and sewer fund. And really, no pun intended, but the tide has turned. As we used to really rely on the general fund to carry the water and sewer fund for the last several years, and we're starting to see that shift. The financial health of this fund has turned around pretty significantly over the last several years due to a few different reasons. We've had some investment on the capital side in our water system, going back to improvements that we made to the Vollmer Reservoir, some water main replacement about 10 years ago. We did a big large meter replacement several years ago, and actually some of that work is being upgraded again this year. And then as residents in the room will know, that we replaced all of our small meters within the last year. And all of this is to better account for the water that is being used. At one point, we were down to losing about a third of everything that we were purchasing. And our bill to purchase ratio had fallen as low as 59%. We were able to get that back up to 83%, and we've been hovering around 79% for the last couple of years. And we're going to talk here this evening. We're starting to actually start to see some surplus and some growth in the fund that's allowed us to shift some capital improvements from general fund back to water and sewer fund where they really belong. So this is all really super good news. On top of that, if you've been following this discussion for the last couple of years, we have a new water supply. We've moved from Chicago Water to Hammond Water. I think we're entering year 3 of that 25-year contract. And that has allowed the village to solidify and control our costs, our supply costs for the next 25 years. And what's really a great point to share with all of you is that those costs, those supply costs are capped at no more than 3% a year for the next 25 years. That's a heck of a deal that the villages of Homewood and Flossmoor were able to obtain. And this year, for example, we're capped at 2.7% on the supply side of the cost to be able to provide all of you water. Let's talk a minute about what those numbers look like. Going into the fiscal year 26 budget, we were coming out of the water meter project. And as you know, part of that was to be able to better account for the water that was being used. And we saw an increase in bills. And we knew that was going to happen because we were not accounting for that water. And so when we were putting together our budget, quite frankly, we sort of overestimated how much revenue that we would see, because naturally, when we all get a higher bill, we all look to see what can we do to conserve moving forward. And so we saw that natural shift happen. So we were probably overestimating our revenues. We're guessing or estimating about $200,000 for the year. But I'll say that, you know, taking a look pre-project, those numbers have improved significantly. So we're about a year and a half past the water supply or the water meter project being completed. And a full year, we're about 600,000 more than pre-project. We just overestimated by another $200,000 in water revenues. So we've adjusted that number going into fiscal year 27. The other big item that I want to talk about in the 26 budget is that this fund was able to support the relocation of a sanitary sewer main in our downtown as part of the downtown project. That came in under budget at about $430,000, but we were able to draw down on our fund balance to be able to support that capital investment with monies on hand. And when we talk about capital projects in the village, we do a lot of that investment with cash. It's very rare that we are going to bond or debt to be able to pay. It doesn't mean that we don't do it, but it's rare for us. So we really try to utilize the funds that we have to be able to pay with cash, which, as we all know, that's less expensive than borrowing money. So we were able to account for that in fiscal year 26. Going into fiscal year 27, there are two big projects that are accounted for in the total fund picture. One being our first phase of our water supply improvements, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years now. Some of the engineering design is accounted for in fiscal year 26, but a majority of those costs at about $680,000 for phase 1 of that project, which is our SCADA system improvement, is sitting in fiscal year 27. And the SCADA system essentially is the brains behind our water supply. It is the computer system that really controls the pumpage and the operation of our system so that it's fairly automatic. And we are overdue for its replacement. So we've been in the engineering and design component, and we expect in fiscal year 27 to select that software and system package to be able to implement that. The other big item in fiscal year 27 from a capital standpoint is engineering work associated with the lead line service replacement. So we have estimated about, in total, about $7 million worth of work that will need to be done to be able to replace lead line services throughout the village. We are pursuing grant funds to be able to complete that work with grant monies. But we have to start the design engineering associated with it. We will have approximately 10 years to be able to complete that project. We plan to do engineering and in fiscal year 27 and start phase 1 in fiscal year 28. And hopefully we'll be able to accumulate enough grant monies to be able to complete it in far less than 10 years. With that, I'll pause if there's any questions on the water and sewer fund before moving over to the general fund.
Keep going.
Keep going. All right. Okay, so as I mentioned, the general fund is our largest fund that controls the operations of the daily operations of the village. It accounts for police, fire, public works, all of the administrative staff, building and zoning, the daily operations. So I want to talk a little bit about some background to kind of set the table on our discussion here this evening. As I mentioned, this budget has been very challenging because we're really faced with some unprecedented times of dealing with Cook County and the remittance of property tax receipts. And in a minute here, I'm going to walk you through a timetable, typical timetable of what that tax levy extension and budget cycle looks like so that you understand how that cash flow works in a typical year. And keep in mind, this year was not typical. Our first receipts that we received in this fiscal year were not until December 29th. Those are typically first received in August and September. So there were significant cash flow issues that we have been contending with. I think the other thing to point out in talking about the financial health of the village is that our EAV is really close to the highest it's ever been. Last year we were at 306 million in EAV value. I will point out that we had reached that value once before, back in 2009, 2010. So right around the time of the Great Recession before it fell. But keep in mind, in 2009, 2010, an EAV of 306 million was supporting a 2010 budget. Now we're expecting that same value of EAV to support a 2026 budget. So that is somewhat challenging. I mean, economic development continues to allow us to share the tax burden. It does not lower it, it shares it. But it's still very important to our continued financial health. Our home sales continue to increase. That also contributes to the EAV and to the health of the village. And so that's also another important market indicator when we're taking a look at the financial health of the community. And the other thing that's happened over the last 10 years, and I'll talk about this in a little bit of detail as well, is that we have really become reliant, even as a bedroom community, reliant on sales tax. And really post the development of Meyer and with the addition of the non-home rule sales tax, the village has really diversified its revenue base. And we'll talk about non-property tax revenues a little bit. But that sales tax has been critical in being able to maintain our services. And when, I should say, especially for some of our newer board members, when staff prepares a preliminary budget to the village board, that is with in mind that we are maintaining our current level of service. This is what it will cost to be able to maintain the service that we're providing today. Any new services, any new ventures are considered as additional funding requests. They're talked about later on in the budget process. This is really what it takes to provide today's level of service. And sales tax revenue has been key in doing that. Talking tonight, so bear with me. All right, the other thing that I'll point out is the health of our general fund balance. These are audited figures as of April 30th, 2025. Our general fund balance was at $7.9 million. Over the last 10 years, we've seen an increase in fund balance of about 1.3 million. And tonight we'll be talking about, things like a budgeted deficit or a budgeted surplus. Those are budgeted figures. These are actual audited figures. I'll also point out that we do our financial planning very conservatively. So for those of you who follow our 5-year analysis or our mid-year financial review, our 5-year analysis really showed that our fund balance as of fiscal year 25 should have fallen to about 5.1 million. We were at 7.9 million. So we're outperforming our own projections, which is good. I'll also point out we have 2 layers of operating reserves. One being 33% of our audited expenses from the previous fiscal year are always set aside for reserve. That most recent figure is at $3.6 million. And we also have what's called the working cash fund of $500,000. So if we need just a short term, and I think this property tax situation is a great example of that, a short term cash flow situation, that we've got the ability to move to that fund first before dipping into our reserves. And then the remaining fund balance is really available to support our finance and facilities projects. And if you're loving this discussion, come back on April 6th, and we'll be talking about our capital improvement plan in a lot more detail. And this is where you get to hear about all the big earth-moving type projects that the village is undertaking. Okay, I thought this would be helpful to some. When you're on the inside, you understand this process a lot and very well. But I don't know if everybody from the outside understands it. So especially as we're talking about the cash flow situation with Cook County, I wanted to point out the fact of how a typical tax levy extension, tax levy adoption, tax levy extension, and then how that compares to our budget cycle. So this is how it should work. And using 2024 through 2025 as examples, every December, the village board approves a levy. So in December of 2024, you approved a levy. The first installment tax bill is set, the bills go out in either February or March. And those monies are received by the village in the spring of 2025. Moving into the summer of that same year, that is when the 2024 tax levy is extended, and then the second installment is sent out and received by the village in the fall of 2025. So because our fiscal year doesn't line up with a calendar year, it's always the second installment and then the next first installment that fall within a fiscal year. Okay, so I think this is important when you're taking a look at especially how the county treasurer's office has been sharing their information with the public. They came out very early to say that they were, 80%, 90%, 97% of the 2024 tax levy has been distributed to agencies. Well, they're taking a look from January through present day. Our monies received from January to April are in a previous fiscal year. They're received, they're spent, they're audited, they're history to us at that point. So the fall monies become really the start of our new monies for any fiscal year. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful for some of you if you didn't fully understand that cycle of how that works.
Bridget, can I ask a clarifying question then?
Sure.
So basically what that means for our current situation is the money that we were supposed to have received in the fall, we still have not received the complete disbursement of that.
We're still about $500,000 short. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit of detail. But, and I'm anticipating a question. Maybe I should let you ask it.
No, go ahead.
Taking a look at the bills that were just sent out February 27th, this is why it's so critical that we're receiving that money before April 30th, because, you know, the fiscal year will be complete come April 30th. And if those monies are received post April 30th, we're into a new fiscal year. So earlier you heard Director Novoa talk about the fact that we're still, you know, owed about half of our tax levy for the fiscal year. That's why, because the second installment or the first installment of the next tax levy is what hits in the spring.
And are we comfortable with just accruing for that? I mean, I wouldn't be, but are we comfortable with accruing for that, knowing that it's coming and retroing it to the time frame that it was supposed to be posted to? If you accrue for it, then it's there, but it's not there.
Well, that's in part why this budget has been so challenging, and we did not assume full receipt of our tax levy in preparing our projected numbers for fiscal year 26. We do assume for fiscal year 27 that those monies will be there. And I'm sure from an accounting standpoint, Director Novoa has some additional comments.
Yes, so that sounds very nice, but unfortunately, when it comes to an audit, we cannot recognize revenue until it's in our bank account. So we can anticipate, but smart budgeting would be to follow the audit as to not inflate anything that we don't think we're going to get, unfortunately.
You might recall from the mid-year discussion that we, you know, that those numbers were prepared in November and presented in December, that we anticipated that we would be about, you know, $300,000 short of what was due to us by fiscal year end based on timing and this whole situation. You know, by the time we were past December 15th and our, you know, directors were working on their budgets and the monies weren't coming, and, you know, we had to take a different approach. And so this budget actually is prepared with about 70% of property taxes realized for fiscal year 26. And we anticipate having to go back and, you know, fine tune those numbers again.
And Trustee Dorsey, part of our concern was, you know, 47 years of excellence in financial reporting. What are the auditors gonna say if the worst, we're planning for the worst, but if the worst happens, if we don't get the disbursements we're looking to get, what are they gonna say? How are they gonna react? This is something that we take very seriously and plan for all year long. So that's top of mind, and that was another part of the conversation with Cook County last week.
Would Skiddich not give us direction on that, on how to proceed? So what would be the issue if they directed us on how to proceed, you know, with the accounting reporting? I mean, it would be,
So
we'd be doing what they directed us to do.
the good thing about this situation is every single Cook County school district, library, park district, municipality is dealing with it. It's not just a Flossmoor issue. So I've been in close contact with our auditing partner throughout this entire situation to make sure that we are making the smartest financial decisions. I mean, they are baffled as much as we are at this situation, but it's not it's not more so the reporting aspect of it will be perfect, but it's the what is this going to do to our fund balance? So it's the financial report award is a concern, but also the bond rating.
You know, if we were up for a rating review, we would hope that the rating agencies would take a similar approach as the auditors, to understand that this is an external, you know, factor that we were not able to control. But they also, you know, recognize that, you know, we're sitting within Cook County. And so, you know, I mean, we would have to see if we were presented with that situation. I think that the bigger, one of the other concerns too is that, you know, if a member of the public who isn't following this is picking up the village's financials and you're seeing this huge drawdown of fund balance in a particular year to support operations, you know, what sort of message is that sending to the public? You know, crafting our message that goes with the audit and the financial statements next year will be, you know, really important to be able to explain what happened here and that really it's temporary.
We, at least I will say that my expectation is that our financial reporting will be just as excellent as it always has been. But we're dealing with real money that we don't have. You know, so regardless of whether it's reported properly or not, we don't have the money. And I think dealing with that is the job that you're working hard to get through. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's the unknown, right? I mean, even as we're sitting here talking about it this evening, we've sat through staff meetings talking about it. You know, well, can we move forward with this? Should we wait? You know, there's implications of not spending money also, right? So, you know, our capital equipment fund, it's that schedule is starting to get thrown off because we haven't been able to complete everything this year. Even simple, and I'll talk about it here shortly, even simple operational expenditures. You know, we've got a big change out of turnout gear in our fire department where, you know, several sets of turnout gear need to be, you know, replaced, and that comes with a cost, and we have it planned, and yet, well, can we be moving forward with that if we're not sure that the monies are coming in? You know, I think the conversation with the county on Friday, if the schedule holds true, I think we'll be okay come April 30th. But you know, we've been told schedules previously and they're not always adhered to, and so that's also part of the unknown. If we knew with certainty that what we were being told was going to come to fruition, we would feel, you know, a lot more confident.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's so frustrating with this, and I won't do a big soapbox thing here, but stability allows us to act on the responsibility that we've put in place in our budgeting, which you guys do a fantastic job, always conservative, always overperform. But when you don't have what you're promised from Cook County, I mean, the cost of everything is going to go up, and even exponentially in the time that we're in right now. So even fuel surcharges that come is going to make everything cost more. There's no way for us probably to go back to Cook County and say, look how much more money you cost us. We need, because they don't have it. But it's frustrating, and you guys have a tough job, and you're doing a great job with it. But yeah, that was where I was going, was if this ends at the fiscal year and we don't have this money, how much more difficult does that make your guys' job with the budgeting, and it's very unfortunate. So I appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Welcome.
Is there any more discussion on interest?
Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
I mean, this
And
is,
they
is
do, they do owe us interest. Yeah,
But they acknowledge it.
they do acknowledge it.
because I would assume that as they're holding on to the revenue is growing interest, right? I mean, so if there's right. So I would assume that it would be smart business for them as it's sitting there because the revenue is there to draw interest on it. So just makes sense to me to pass that interest on to.
That also ties into this whole issue of disbursement reports. They still don't have disbursement reports working, which is what tells us the accounting of the monies and what particular levy line it goes to, even what tax year it goes to. The fact that we're going to start receiving, hopefully, tax receipts from, you know, the first installment of 25 here. Well, we don't know if the money coming in, we're going to assume a majority of that is 25, but you could still have people paying old taxes off of 24 or even off of 23. I mean, there's always back taxes coming in. So the fact that that's a whole nother layer to this that we've been in conversation with Cook County about. Anne, did you want to?
Yeah, so every year we would get interest. There would be a small amount of interest that Cook County would distribute to us. But like Bridget just said, the missing piece to this is reporting. So they have zero reporting capabilities right now. So if they're sending money, it's hitting our bank, then they're just shooting me an email saying, this is the amount that you should have got. There's no, it's for this tax year, it's for this tax year. This percentage is interest. There's, and they don't even have the capabilities to produce anything at the moment. So, and they'll straight up tell you that when you ask them about it. So, that's the difficult part. But we have been pushing really hard on what's what, how do we know, how confident are you guys that this is actually what it is? So, we'll see.
I'm not suggesting additional work, but I'm wondering if not we, because it wouldn't be the board, it would be finance calculated the future value based on when we receive the funds. Can that be presented to the county, to the state?
The it can. The missing piece is I don't know what type of where they're holding this money. So they would have to be willing to give me some type of information. I mean, I could do an average interest percentage of what the market's at right now, but
Yeah, but you'd also need more detail in what you're receiving to be able to do that, right?
Correct.
You need the line item
Right.
detail of what revenue is going
Sure.
into what bucket
yeah,
to be able to do that.
who's
If
paid
not,
what,
you're just
when,
creating
yep.
another, yeah.
The good thing is that no one has been through this before, so we're all going through it together. Not that that's a good thing, but if anyone is prepared to kind of weather the storm, it's Flossmoor, because we've prepared and we've prepared and we continue to prepare. So, hopefully there's a reasonable expectation that we'll be made whole. And it's unfortunate because the system is, it's just ripe for abuse. No one knows where the dough is, right? And it's terrible. It's a terrible situation to be in. And it's not one that we've created, but we're having to deal with it. So
What about our grants? Is this putting any of that in jeopardy? Don't we have to come up with money before we get the money, so to speak?
That's a great lead in for me
Sorry, I
to
didn't wanna-
continue on with the
I knew you had it in
presentation.
there, all right.
I will address that, absolutely. I think we've covered this in some detail, but I'll say, just to kind of close up the property tax discussion, as I mentioned, 26 was projected at 70% of property taxes being received. That's a decrease of about 2.4 million compared to budget. Now, again, these numbers have been prepared a couple of months ago. As of Friday, we've actually been remitted 3.3 million. We're still waiting about $571,000 from the 2024 second installment. That probably doesn't seem like a lot of money when we start talking about millions, but think of that as your annual street resurfacing program. That's the equivalent of it. That's a whole program that we wouldn't be able to do. First, as I mentioned, the first installment for 2025, those bills were sent out on February 27th. We would need to receive an additional 2.1 million by April 30th to be considered whole. All right, so let's get into the numbers, and they're not pretty right now, I'll tell you that. So we had budgeted the use of about 1.4 million in fund balance to be able to support operations going into fiscal year 26. By the time that we drew down fund balance to support our capital projects, that number was around 3 million. We're projecting that we are going to use pretty close, if these numbers hold true, pretty close to about 1.4 million in fund balance to support operations, but the total fund position is improved at about 1.5 million. So what does that mean? That means that we have slowed down capital investment, and that's always the first place that we turn. So what's causing this? Obviously, the lack of property tax receipts. We've seen some really incredible revenue growth, and I'll talk about that. Believe it or not, even though we're looking at these projected deficits, um, we've also deferred capital. We've deferred some operating expenses, as I mentioned, and we do have some vacant positions that we've not been able to act on given this situation. We also have several grants that offset capital projects, and I'll talk about that here this evening as well. And not surprisingly, if you follow some of this activity, our capital projects tend to last over more than one fiscal year, 1 to 2, 3, sometimes 4 fiscal years, depending on how big the project is. So we do have some projects that carry into fiscal year 27. So this is an interesting graphic this year compared to previous years, given this property tax situation. So we are seeing, give me a second here. On the revenue side, our projections are worse than budget, right, by about $800,000. And yet, at the same time, we are seeing our expenditures better than budget, spending less compared to budget by 830,000. And the fact that we would still be looking at a drawdown of fund balance to be able to support operations, I mean, that really speaks to the importance of receiving this property tax money. So let's talk about what's making up these expenditures. And there's a summary in the board packet as well as the information that's on our website. So we do post our preliminary budget, not only on our budget and financial statements page on our website, but we also have a transparency page on our website. The document is posted in both of those places, along with the report that is in the board packet here this evening. And I'm not going to go through all of the variances. We would be here all evening, and I'm sure you'd hold on to every single word. But in the interest of time, I just want to focus on a few here that really kind of speak to this cash flow situation. Personnel vacancies, we've got about 130,000 in full-time vacancies and probably another 34,000 in part-time vacancies. On the full-time side, these are positions that we haven't been able to act on in public works given the situation with property tax monies. We have deferred, we'll plan on deferring our fourth quarter capital transfer to support our capital equipment fund. We'll talk about the capital equipment fund in more detail at the next board meeting, but this is our 10-year sinking fund that allows us to be able to go out and buy a fire engine with cash, or a pickup truck or a plow, all with cash on hand. And the revenue source for that sinking fund is the general fund and the water sewer fund. So by deferring that fourth quarter payment, that's an immediate savings to the general fund of about $212,000. So now we're starting to talk about some meaningful cash flow savings given this situation. As I mentioned, we've had some other expenses in departments that we have kind of placed on hold and waiting to see what happens. If we're able to expend those monies before fiscal year end, or whether they're carried forward into fiscal year 27. Those include uniforms for fire, police, and public works. Most of that money that's talked about in the report at $23,000, most of that actually is tied up in fire with turnout gear. Hose and pager supplies that we're kind of holding steady on, waiting to see if additional monies come in. That's at $15,000. We have a plumbing project for the building that's tied to the gun range improvements that we need to make. We have deferred all of that given this situation. That's a $25,000 investment. We had allocated about $80,000 in the general fund towards street maintenance, really tied to our projected share of casino revenue money that we were receiving for the first time this year. In order to give the general fund a little bit of relief, we drew down additional monies out of motor fuel tax this year to be able to support our annual street resurfacing program. And as you'll see in the preparation of the 27 budget, we put some additional monies toward sidewalk replacement instead, as an offset to the casino monies that are intended to be used for capital improvements. But really, just from a cash flow standpoint, we weren't comfortable moving forward with that this year. And if there are any in the report that the board has questions on, I'm happy to answer those, but I'll be going on and on if I don't selectively pick certain ones. Expenditures over budget, most of them are tied to personnel and fringe benefits. I mean, we're a service industry, so that's where most of our costs are, right? They're tied in people and the costs associated with having employees. So we received an increase in our IMRF rate this year, and that's the retirement program for general employees, non-police and fire, non-sworn employees. That has a $51,000 implication to the fiscal year 26 budget. On the patrol side, our police overtime, that's over budget by about 196,000. Some of that is tied to and offset by the IDOT patrol grant that we were able to receive. That's in the amount of about 60,000. We're also retained for several details, especially school details, where we are reimbursed for those costs of having officers present, and then just covering vacancies, sickness, illness, that sort of thing. There's implications there for overtime, really in all of our departments. We also took on an additional actuarial study this year tied to proposed Senate Bill 1937 that was sitting in the veto session. This is the redefinition of class or tier 2 employees. And so municipalities were all taking a look at what those implied costs would be if that legislation went through. Several communities went through the actuarial study to be able to speak with intelligence on what those implications would be, and so that was an additional cost in fiscal year 26 as well. So on the revenue side, outside of property taxes, we've got some really great news. Over $1 million associated with sales tax, state income tax, and casino tax revenue. And this is comparing budget to projected. On the sales tax side, and this is not only what I call regular sales tax, but also our non-home rule or our additional 1%, $760,000 more than budget. Now, some of that is related to a legislative change to the definition of the local use tax. So we saw those numbers come down and sales tax go up. But we're gonna talk about sales tax in a little bit more detail. But sales tax has become really important to sustaining our operations. State income tax is about $200,000 more than budget. This is also constitutionally in the state of Illinois. The state shares the state income tax with municipalities. We don't, in several states, the municipalities collect an income tax. We do not. We are supposed to constitutionally be given at 10%. That number has gone down as low as 5%. It's currently sitting at 6.23%, or I'm sorry, 6.47%. There's, as part of this year's budget proposal at the state of Illinois, they're looking at another sweep of this fund that would bring us down to 6.23%. So this is a constant struggle for municipalities to defend monies that are supposed to already constitutionally be ours as part of the state shared revenue. But these, and you'll see a graph here in a minute, these are really significant dollars to supporting our budget outside of property tax. And in a year like this year, where those monies are even more critical, to hear that, we might be further pinched by a legislative change at the state level is very concerning. The Southland Casino, we receive a share of that money. And this is the first full year of casino tax revenue, and we're projecting that at 135,000, or about 51,000 more than what we had budgeted going into fiscal year 26. Ambulance fees continue to be another significant revenue source for us, somewhat unfortunately. But we're projecting about 450,000 more than budget. There is a state program where we are reimbursed essentially for Medicaid type or Medicaid qualifying calls, but then we have to give 50% of those revenues back to the state. So we're anticipating that in fiscal year 26, that's going to be about a $300,000 expenditure. The timing of the state bills compared to ambulance fee revenue is a little bit off, but we don't hear from them for a while, and then all of a sudden we get two bills, that sort of thing. So interest income is projected to be about 120,000 more than what we had budgeted. Again, that's a reflection of being in an inflationary market. But I'll point out the other piece on the Cook County discussion is the number of investments that we've disinvested so that we had cash flow available to us. And Director Novoa estimates that that's a loss of about another 55,000 in revenue because of the disinvested investments. So those are a few on the revenue projections I wanted to point out. If there are questions, I'm happy on any of the others. I'm happy to take them. Here's this graph on sales tax and how it's grown over the years. Pre-Meyer, we averaged $250,000 a year in sales tax. We now are projecting that number at 1.7 million, with another 980,000 tied to non-home rule sales tax. This is a growth of about 9 times what it was pre-Meyer and I'll just say Southwest Flossmoor, the other development that we've seen in Southwest Flossmoor. So this is very significant, and that non-home rule sales tax alone is about 36% of total sales tax revenue. Okay, so this chart represents those revenues outside of property tax, and that yellow gold line is the sales tax revenue, and you can see the year that you implemented the non-home rule sales tax. It was right there in fiscal year 19 is when those monies started to come in, and you can see how that line has steadily increased. That next blue line down is our state income tax. So you can see where that revenue sits compared to others. Charges and fees is the next kind of bluish line down from there. Utility taxes is that orange line. Licenses and permits is that green line. Telecommunications fees has steadily decreased over the years. It's a very small component of our budget. And you can also see that brown line represents fines that the village issues. So we are not balancing our budget based on tickets. So you can see how flat and low that number is compared to others. So taking a look at the total fund, and again, total fund includes not only the operating costs of the village, but it also takes into account all the grant revenues that we receive for a particular fiscal year, and then the capital improvements that we are undertaking. As I mentioned, we operate with a save then spend philosophy. So we're trying to pay for everything with cash on hand with the fund balance that's available. And we draw down that fund balance to be able to support those projects. So in short, we are planning to spend less capital this year than what has been budgeted. What projects are included in this year include the Flossmoor Road Viaduct, Phase 3, the Dartmouth Bridge, engineering work, the CBD, Central Business District improvements. All of those projects are also tied to grants. So a majority of the costs of those projects have been tied to grants. And in some cases, the village share of that project will not be realized until the next fiscal year, and you'll see the monies rebudgeted for that. The general fund has been able to be relieved of the water and sewer improvements, so those numbers are not included in fiscal year 26, where they had been up until this point. So that is some good news. Municipal complex improvements, we're trying to kind of tick away year by year at projects that need to be addressed in a building that is, pushing 50 years old. Our next couple of priorities include the front desk of our building and zoning department and improving the customer interaction at that location, as well as employee safety, as well as improvements to the police department women's bathroom. So we've been able to do some of that work this year, but a majority of that is being carried over into fiscal year 27. Again, these are big dollars, budgeted at $200,000 plus, depending on how bidding comes in. And so, given this situation, a majority of that has been put on hold. Other one-time non-operating costs included in fiscal year 2026 include our contract for retail coach, which does not carry into fiscal year 27. That's because we're moving forward with our MOU with Southland Development Authority that the board approved at a couple of meetings ago. Our document management system includes being able to scan and make OCR readable village documents. It's expensive to scan all those documents. We have started that project, but again, we are anticipating only spending about 40,000 of the 100,000 that was budgeted. We had acquired 3648 198th Street this year as part of the no cash bid program. This is actually one of the parcels that is included in the OBE Studios development. That home did need to be demolished, and we did act on that for safety and liability concerns. We are adding 5 pedestrian crosswalk beacons throughout the village. We received a $10,000 ComEd grant to help offset that cost is going to come in around $26,000. We also have a grant, a State of Illinois Attorney General's grant to help allow us to expand our camera system in our retail areas. Some of those monies will be expended in fiscal year 26, and some of them will be carried over to fiscal year 27. And we'll talk a lot more detail about capital projects at the first meeting in April. Grant-wise, $1.9 million is expected to be received in fiscal year 26. I think one of the two projects that we're most concerned about, as the mayor mentioned earlier, we have an Army Corps of Engineer grant for phase 4 of the Flossmoor Road Viaduct project. That is currently under administrative review at the federal level. And we really have received no word on whether that's going to be released to us or not, or carried out. Actually, the Army Corps would actually do that project for us. So all that is currently on hold. And the other one that we're concerned about is the acquisition of 1648 Western Avenue. So this is the flood-prone property project where we have a home and a willing seller whose home is sitting right in the floodplain of Butterfield Creek. And this is a project that would ultimately be 100% funded between a FEMA grant and MWRD. The issue here, and back to Trustee Lofton, your comments, the village needs to upfront that money. So, you know, we have to go through the process of actually buying out this home, doing the demolition, restoring the property, and then we're reimbursed through these two grants. And you know, to upfront what we estimate to be about $500,000 to get through those different components of the project at a time where we're not sure if you know we're going to be receiving all of our property tax revenues. We're not quick to do that. So MWRD, you know, they're another Cook County agency. They are very understanding of the situation that we're in. They're concerned with their projects as well for similar reasons. But ultimately, grants have deadlines, right? So that one is another one that we're concerned about whether we'll be able to hit that deadline in time or not. So again, we'll talk about that in more detail at the beginning of April, and hopefully we'll have more information at that time.
May I ask one question about that?
Sure.
Is the owner still living in that property?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this is now our second chance to try to buy out this property, and hopefully this homeowner works with us to, you know, kind of see this through. So we'll see. We'll see if we can get it done. All right, so taking a look at the 27 budget compared to 26, so this is budget to budget. We are budgeting that our operating expenses, not surprisingly, are more compared to the current year, right? So in order to be able to maintain the service, it's going to cost us more going into next year. The total fund reflects our capital and non-operating expenses, which at this point is less than fiscal year 26. We're definitely starting to kind of see the wind down of projects and grant monies come in. You'll see that total fund revenues are less than they have been in previous years. Keep in mind that we don't recognize those grant revenues until we have a grant document in hand. So there is $1 million, so a total of $2 million in grant revenues that could impact our budget, both impacting the Flossmoor Road Viaduct project, one from Senator Harris and one from MWRD. So as of right now, we have about 1.1 million in grants reflected in the 27 budget. Hopefully we're going to see that number increase by 2 million here in the next couple of months. So what expenditures are greater than, these are significant expenditures greater than fiscal year 26. You know, we've got the kind of the usual suspects here, those tied to fringe benefits, health insurance, IMRF, FICA, and Medicare. Those are all expected to be greater than budget. Sometimes it's a reflection of a rate increase. Sometimes it's the rate increase plus actual reflection of staffing and cost of staffing. Our capital equipment fund, the cost to maintain our equipment and the amount of equipment that we have, especially the amount of technology that we have, continues to grow. The general fund contribution in fiscal year 27 is about $1 million alone. And that's an increase of about 158,000 in compared to fiscal year 26. So that is reflected, of course, as a significant expenditure overage comparing fiscal year 26 to 27. Information technology, we've done a lot here to try to streamline and make more efficient not only the hardware, but the subscription services that we receive. The budget for fiscal year 27 reflects anywhere from a 3 to 5% increase in inflationary type costs, but also reflects, you know, a streamlining of actual hardware that we've been able to do over the last couple of years with our new vendor. So we're in total seeing about a $45,000 increase across all of the technology to support operations. This year, we did actually divert a small share over to water and sewer. Again, because of the good turnaround with the water and sewer fund, we've been able to move some of that money or some of that cost over in the amount of 26,000. Personnel costs, by and large, are not reflected yet in the preliminary budget. So any sort of wage adjustments, cost of living increases, but anticipated increases expected in overtime or with our fire contract, for example, or even with the number of hours of part-time employees. Those are reflected here. Any sort of wage adjustment that's considered will be added to the final budget and talked about later on in the process. Our sidewalk replacement program is budgeted at $247,000 in fiscal year 27, and this is where we've kind of put that extra, that new revenue coming from the casino tax. Diverted some of that into the sidewalk program into next year. Rebudgeted things operational expenses that we not anticipating being able to complete this fiscal year because of, you know, everything that we've talked about here this evening. And so we're seeing those monies move over to fiscal year 27. So it's a reflection in our building maintenance, a reflection in, you know, fire uniforms and so forth. So if there are any questions on expenditures, I'll move over to revenues. Property taxes, this is comparing levy to levy. So this is, you know, assuming everything goes back to normal and what we're accustomed to. Property taxes should be about $300,000 more than fiscal year what we should be receiving in fiscal year 26. That recognizes a 3.4% tax cap. And this is just a direct reflection of what the board had approved with the most recent tax levy. State income tax at about 60,000 more than budget. Again, the importance of this revenue, we see these numbers climb generally from year to year. And sales tax and non-home rules sales tax based on trends, we're expecting another 570,000 tied to those revenues. Casino tax, we're budgeting at about 127,000. Ambulance fees, an increase of about 350,000. Again, there's this share that goes back to the state that we've budgeted on the expense side at about 300,000. And then those revenues less than budget. Utility tax, we're anticipating about 24,000 less than budget. This tends to be a direct, and we haven't talked a lot about utility tax tonight, but that really tends to fluctuate with weather patterns. And so, you know, we see that kind of ebb and flow from year to year. Business registration, we're only in year 2 of that program. Trying to receive compliance with our business community. You know, we're kind of learning the ropes on that program. But I think we're hopefully getting to a revenue projection or a revenue estimate that is more in line with what we're expecting to receive. So here you can see this again, this is a preview of the finance and facilities plan discussion, several grant supported projects that we've talked about in quite some detail this evening already, and then one-time non-operating expenses, including additional work on our document management system, the police camera project that I mentioned earlier, moving forward those facility improvements that we weren't able to complete this year. And then we also, as a one-time non-operating expense, want to add some additional signage in our downtown area, and we have that budgeted in fiscal year 27 as well. So some general observations to share. You know, eliminating the water and sewer funds dependence on the general fund has become critical. I mean, thank goodness in all of this whole debacle over the last few months that you know, we aren't trying to be able to also support the water and sewer fund with general fund monies right now. So that has been a blessing in all of this. You know, the new revenue growth that we have seen, kind of going back to that multicolored chart, if you can picture that in your mind, you know, there's no huge fund balance that's accumulating here, you know, from year to year. We're holding our own, but we're also using that new revenue to absorb the expenses and the rising costs that we see from year to year. We're not in a position to be able to do, you know, huge new programs or expanded services. Technology really has impacted our budget. I think that's true for a lot of organizations, and we're no different. As I mentioned, we still have salary adjustments to consider. There's also this carryover process. Some of it we know going into the budget, preliminary budget, and so we include those in these numbers. But there's also an opportunity here in late March where our directors can submit additional carryovers because they know those projects won't be completed by fiscal year end, or the items won't be received by fiscal year end. And I think with that, I'll just highlight what you can anticipate over the next few meetings. On March 16th, we'll talk about the capital equipment fund and the water and sewer rates. On April 6th, we're going to talk about the finance and facilities plan and the places for eating fee, which we anticipate being a significant impact to our budget. April 20th concludes our discussion with another full presentation of the final budget. You'll receive a full copy of that, and it'll be available on the website as well, including summarizing any changes that have been made since the presentation here this evening. There'll be a public hearing and then the adoption of the budget. So with that, I will be happy to answer any additional questions that the board may have.
That's it.
That's it.
Want to thank everybody you see. No, you're good. Want to thank everybody you see in the back of the room here today. They have been a huge help in pulling all of this together. And again, as Village Manager Wachtel said, the executive summary and the full budget is online if you want to comb through there line by line. It is at the very least, I recommend that you read the executive summary. It gives a fantastic snapshot of the process and some of the concerns that we've had in the past, some of the issues that we've dealt with, also with our current concerns, and then where we see this going in the future. Also want to thank all of you. Usually the room clears out when Bridget says she's going to talk about the budget, but you all stayed. So thank you so much for that. Want to thank the board here for supporting all of this work that goes on throughout the year. We're going to continue working with SSMMA, that's South Suburban Mayors and Managers, to lobby against legislation that increases our costs but does not improve the services that we provide. That's critically important. We have weekly legislative meetings talking about what's happening in Springfield, and we routinely reach out to our representatives to give them our feedback. Hopefully this gives you a snapshot of how seriously we take this project. Staff plans, they budget, and then all year long they're still looking for ways to improve the services and also reduce costs. So a lot of government entities, you'll see how can we maximize our spending. Not here in the Village of Flossmoor. We're always looking for ways that we can save and improve the bottom line and the services that we provide to you. Another thing that I wanted to point out that user-based fees, that's really helped take some of the burden off of what we do to items that help keep our standards high, like a full-time code enforcement officer, and that being paid for with user-based fees. So that's also another way that the village looks to improve the services and the look of our village and the operations of our village, while placing the burden on the folks who are using those services most. So great job. Thank you. I'll start with comments from Trustee Lofton.
Thank you, Mayor. And Bridget, as usual, you have enlightened us as to what money is all about in the village of Flossmoor. So thank you very much for that. I've tried to imagine in looking at this, what our situation would be like if, I want to say if Cook County didn't exist. I don't mean that. If the situation with Cook County did not exist, it would be a different picture. And I think we would be applauded for it, even at this point, coming to the end of the fiscal year 26. But I'm going to wait until we move forward and break down some of the issues, particularly with capital expenditures at our next meeting. So I'll have more questions then.
Thank you so much. Trustee Dorsey.
To be where we are, despite of where we are, is still worthy of applause, right? Because this could be a much more dire situation, and it just goes to speak volumes of the work that's being done, even in a difficult scenario, right? A pretty picture is easy when everything is working perfectly, but a sustainable picture is even more impressive when things are working against you. And I think what we see here is really a sustainable picture. So thanks for all the work that's being done.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett.
Yeah, it's always been impressive to me since I've been sitting in one of these seats up here, how much work this takes. I'll ask Ann, I'm like, when's budget stuff start? It's almost year round that you guys are working on this stuff. And right when you finish it, we go to the next. So it's a lot of work. I appreciate the amount of work that goes in. It's always interesting to see where there are other entities that we rely on who are being fairly unreliable. We've been fighting the state for the state income tax share for years. I'm surprised that they can act in an unconstitutional way, and it's like, deal with it. It's unfortunate because we're being very responsible with the way we go about things, and we're overperforming. You guys are overperforming. We just vote on this stuff. You guys are overperforming in your duties, even in spite of the pressures that you're seeing with unfunded mandates. And I mean, there's just tons and tons of stuff you're constantly hit with. And I don't think that the average person has time to think about it or knows to think about it or just understands everything that goes in. And I see these reports and it starts to look like hieroglyphics at times. But it's great because I know I can go to you guys at any point. I had a conversation with Ann. What should I be worried about in this? And able to just kind of point by point, here's where we're at. So I appreciate that you have the expertise to get deep into the weeds, but then say, here, layman's terms, this is where we're at. So I appreciate these. I know they're long. I'm surprised the number of people also who stuck around for budget conversation. I know we have a couple of accountant people in the audience, but so yeah, thank you so much for the work. I'm looking forward to the rest of it. I think capital equipment is always a good one because we get to see what we've been planning for coming in. And I know that's a big one. So yeah, I actually like these meetings because it gives us kind of a pulse of where we're at and where we're headed. So.
Thank you. Trustee Rogers.
It was a good report to just educate people on where the funds are coming from and how they're being spent. But also to know the issues that's been ongoing with the state and especially Cook County that most people are not privileged to know about, especially when you work with grants and receiving, the tax funds that support the village and how it's affecting other villages as well. So it just shows the effort that we put forth, especially with the strategic planning and trying to mitigate some of the funds that we know we're missing to plan for, like you said, the user base fee, the flat fee that we talked about in the previous meeting, to support our streets and things of that nature. So it's it's enlightening, I would say, for some, and more insightful just to see the direction that we're moving in, to show good budgeting, um, that we're still staying afloat where other villages may not be in the same situation. So excellent job. Yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Mustafa.
I'll start with the last comment that Trustee Rogers said. Excellent job. Um, yes, all the data, all the hard information is valuable, commendable, represents a lot of work. But what I like almost more are the notes and the comments about how to interpret and the things that you add in the report to just say, here's where we are. I mean, it's not just a litany of fact after fact after fact. So I thank you for making it a real picture for us. I did have just a couple questions for clarification. We talk about on the one hand, the advantage of inflationary, the inflationary environment because it increases our sales tax revenue. But there's an offset because we pay more for everything also. Um, Even anecdotally, I don't know that you ever could calculate dollar for dollar, but do you ever talk about what the net gain really is? Because people are paying more at the grocery store, at retail stores, and we're paying more for everything we do. And it's not just a gain on the one side.
We have not gone through that exercise. I mean, it's not only the sales tax revenue, the interest income is a reflection of the inflationary market. The state income tax is as well. You know, typically the you know, people's incomes are higher. Um, but yes, at the same time, then we're all, the cost of doing business is greater for us as well. You know, we're a business too. So, you know, all of our commodities, supplies, certainly impacted by tariffs, and, you know, if petroleum increases go up, you know, we see that across departments here. So, um, but yeah, I don't know that we have not gone through that exercise. And I don't know how, I'm not sure. I'd have to give that some consideration to how close or accurate we could get with that. But I mean, the raw data is here when you take a look at just the increase in the particular line items themselves.
Okay, thank you. And I admit I wasn't seeking an absolute. I just was seeking your take on it, your perspective. The other question I had is toward the end, I guess it's page 74, 76, we start to talk about more about the property taxes. And you mentioned there's a section on EAV, and specifically you mentioned two things, homestead and senior freeze. Can you talk a little bit about for Flossmoor specifically because of our home values, our average, income? Does senior freeze affect us that much? And what do I mean by that much? Significantly?
Well, one thing about Cook County not being able to produce any reports is we unfortunately cannot see the information that affected our last levy. But the previous year, I do recall receiving a report with that information, and we actually have quite a few homes in Flossmoor that do have that senior freeze. But if you look on our extension, there's this lost and cost value that the Cook County adds to each levy line. That is to help make up for such things as tax exemptions, people who don't pay their taxes, or senior freezes.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
think the other thing to consider with just kind of the exemption discussion in general is that, you know, the levy is still the levy. That's what we're trying to collect. So if somebody pays less, that means somebody else is paying more. You know, everybody's increase or decrease is relative to all the other property taxpayers in the system. You know, and I know there's a lot of discussion actually kind of system-wide. We're not in this situation, but I know there are other communities that are, where they have, because of the senior freeze and senior exemption, and they actually have some single-family property homes that actually aren't paying any property taxes. And so, you can reach a tipping point where that really becomes a burden on the rest of the system. So that really gets into a whole property tax policy discussion. But keep in mind, it's all relative to one another and who's paying.
Thank you. That's all I have. Again, thank you to you, village manager, finance department, all the staff. We here can see a very rich, full picture because of the work you've done to pull the information together. As I've said, perhaps not recently, but it's managing the budget that is the harder part. You can establish a budget and that takes a lot of work, but managing to the budget is the information that gets us to this point to be able to budget for subsequent years and to know where we are. So I thank you very much, everyone, for managing well to the budget.
Thank you, Trustee Mitros.
Every year it's riveting, and I do applaud the audience for hanging in here, because I can see by the expressions on your faces you're just really into this. And there's more to come, right?
There is.
I think in the whole conversation, I think of Mike Tyson's words that, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face or the mouth. Well, we've been punched in the face or the mouth, and guess what? We're still standing, and we're doing a good job. And I think this group in this village is probably doing a much better job than much of Cook County. So, we have more to come, but good job. You should be proud of everything you've done here and the whole staff. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not need to go into executive session tonight, so I'm going to call for other business. I'll start with Trustee Dorsey.
Unlike Trustee Mitros, I do not like getting punched in the face. But again, just thank you for all the work. I can only imagine the amount of detail that goes into doing this and amount of expertise that's needed, and it's I'm very appreciative of being part of this and the work that you guys do. Thank you much.
Thank you, Trustee Daggett.
Yeah, just wanted to mention a couple of things I'm very excited about. One of them is they poured the new footings which was mentioned earlier, for the devices that are going at the crossing. It's something that we've been talking about for years. And it's one of the frustrating things about government is it takes a long time for things to happen. But what is coming is going to be awesome. So I know one of a big concern that we hear often from residents is the safety at crosswalks. We've had some very close near misses. And these units that are going in are fantastic. I've seen a couple of them in different communities. I actually got out to try it to see how it works, took pictures and said, "Hey, Bridget, what about this?" And she's like, "That's the one we're actually looking at." So they've been working very, very hard to get this stuff done. So thank you to Public Works. Thank you for everybody in the village who's been working on that. Additionally, something that came across in our manager's report is some information about the situation we have on Latimer Lane. I live on Latimer Lane. Luckily, I'm not as affected by many of my neighbors, but the flooding, we continue to put those in the crosshairs to deal with the biggest issues, and then also some of the quick hitters. And I just appreciate the continued work to do that and going after a plan and going after money that's not ours to do it. So thank you so much for the work you guys are doing on that. I know that's a long-term project, but the manager reports are great because we get to see the things that are being focused on far out. And it's like one thing gets done. It's like, all right, we're ready for the next one. We're ready for the next one. So it's a nonstop effort. But those two things, I just wanted to say thank you for all the efforts because I know that that's going to affect some people in a very positive way.
And what Trustee Daggett is referring to is it's about a $2 million flood mitigation project over on Latimer Lane. Severe flooding, geez, and it does sometimes that floods and the viaduct's not even closed, so you can't get emergency vehicles down Latimer Lane. Folks can't get out of their driveways to go to work or to school, but that's about a $2 million project that we are applying for a federal grant to fund. And we have been very lucky because our state representatives are all supporting us with letters to Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, and Congresswoman Kelly. So that's going very well.
Yeah, I have a picture of my daughter and I in the street in a canoe that I could share with someone who, if they wanted to see it. Michelle always loves when I post things like that.
Thank you so much. Trustee Rogers.
I don't really have any other business, but just want to say thank you again with the transparency in the budget and just explaining it so that people can understand what's really going on, especially in Cook County, how the funds are being spent, and again, just some of the strategic planning that goes into it because it's a lot of work, and not everyone knows how much work actually goes into it. Um, so yeah, just want to say thank you again to the staff and the board for everything that you've done.
Thank you. Trustee Mustafa.
I've mentioned being optimistic at least once before, and I continue to be optimistic that you will work through the delay in the levy, the receipt of the funds, because the effort is being put forth, but more than that, the expertise and the commitment is there. So it's difficult. We thank you for it, but I'm optimistic that you'll work through it for Flossmoor. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mitros.
I have nothing.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
I have nothing either.
Thank you. Clerk Porter.
No comments. Thank you.
Village Attorney.
I do want to say I go to a lot of meetings in all of the counties, but I go to a lot of meetings in Cook County. And to your village staff and Ann and Bridget, they do better job with this than any other place I deal with. The precision and knowing the exact dollar amounts. I go to places. I'm for better or for worse. I'm the numbers attorney. I deal with the tax rate objections and all of that stuff. Yay! But the most of my places are asking me to figure out how much money they're out of, and I ain't there on a daily basis. So it's great for you guys to have people who are on top of this.
Thank you. Village Manager.
Thank you for those kind words. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the people in the back of the room who, put together this document. They're in the weeds of the costs to operate their department, advocating for what they need, and at the same time working together to make sure that we're providing a full complement of services. So, want to thank all of our directors for their hard work. Especially Ann Navoa, this this has been incredibly challenging, and in the middle of putting together a budget at the same time, we're on meetings with Cook County to try to wrestle money out of them, and it feels like we've been dealing with this on several fronts, and we're gonna blink and she's gonna be back into audit again, and so. Just want to thank you for the incredible job that you've done over the last couple of months. So thank you so much to Ann and to the rest of the team.
All right. Looking forward to seeing everybody at the walkabout on Saturday. Line up at 12:30. Wear something green. Bring a kid with a decorated bike. Hopefully, it's your own kid or grandkid in some people's case. Anyway, thank you so much. Can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a great night, everybody.